can you please come up and perhaps some applause, guys? Yeah, there we go.
Thank you very much, Ken Eric. I think we need one for the audience.
Yeah,
I will have that one, sorry.
Sound check, yep. Sounds like we have sound.
Great. We thought we'd do a little bit different spin on the presentation today than what we usually do. So instead of going through everything that we do and all the technical parts, we just thought we'd give you some context, and then we'll basically leave the rest of the presentation up to you to ask questions, and we'll answer them. So we are like a two-way dialogue, just to make it a bit more interactive. I can give you some context to start off with. So Iagon is a decentralized storage provider. As we saw in the earlier presentations through Cardano Summit, data is an extremely important asset for individuals and companies. And as pointed out both by Charles and others, the modern storage providers are not just storing your data, but they're also using algorithms and other types of technologies behind it to produce more money for themselves. We think that data should be more secure, because data is very important for you as an individual and you as a company. And that's why, one of the reasons at least, why we created Iagon, which uses blockchain to encrypt your data in a decentralized mesh of different storage providers, be that data centers, personal computers, eventually mobile telephones, and so on and so forth. Is there anything you want to add, Trym?
Yeah, no, and part of the value proposition is, for example, for everyday users. So I personally don't use that much cloud computing. I have enough storage on my computer, and I have an external hard drive, so I'm not that scared of losing my files. But I can still use Iagon because I have more storage than I need. I have a more powerful computer than I need, realistically. And I'm more than happy to lend out some of that computing power, some of that storage, to a solution like Iagon, and get some rewards for it. Because otherwise, it's just standing there idle. It's creating value from something that's otherwise not creating value. And I know a lot of my family have old computers, old devices. So, for example, this phone is a couple of years old. I'm going to change it out soon, but it's also broken and stuff. So I'm probably not going to resell it, and it's just going to go in a box somewhere. I could just as well hook that up to something and then earn some rewards on that. So they're both as a storage solution and as a value generation platform. We can provide sort of benefits on both sides, because as a storage provider, as a cloud platform, using this network that we're creating and using these, let's be honest, a lot cheaper options than the data centers, and we don't have to have this this middleman structure and value extraction. So we can basically make cloud computing cheaper, and that is one of the driving points for people who aren't even interested in blockchain. That's going to be the driving point to get them sort of on board.
You may all be thinking, but hang on, there's a lot of people doing this, and you're correct. So there's storage, which some of you might remember. There is Filecoin, Filebase. You also have some sort of hybrid solutions like Wasabi. But one of the things that sort of makes us a bit different than the rest is that we are looking at user rights and implementing them in the fabric of the technology. So, for example, GDPR. GDPR is a very important rule that protects or gives you more ownership over the data that these other data consumers have, like Facebook or Google or whatever. With our technology, that's sort of built in. So if you want to know where your data is, you actually choose where your data is going to go in the mesh network. So we're providing like an extra added value that's already compliant to the regulations about data privacy, which we feel gives us a unique advantage in the market.
And that's not only is that something that's very useful because we want to, but it's actually illegal now to not be, it's enforced by law at this point, this Gdpr compliance. So, for example, files containing personal information about Norwegian citizens should be kept within the boundaries of Norway. That's part of a law work that was put forth in May this year. And especially files containing this personnummer, this personal identification number, is illegal to store outside of Norwegian and Norway's boundaries. Other cloud providers like IBM, Google, Amazon, they cannot guarantee that the files are actually stored within Norway. But as David said, that's part and parcel of the design. You can actually, that's a parameter you can set where you want your files to be stored.
I see, I'm looking at the audience now and I see that everyone's got their hands up. So, who wants to go with the first question?
The first question would be most likely on everybody's mind here. What about security of the data? So if I put my files in your computer, can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
That is an excellent question.
Yeah, great question.
We're going to be talking the rest of the time.
I could probably start and then leave over to you, Trym. So, traditional data centers, they have what's called redundancy, and you have different types of tiers of data centers. So, tier 1 data center is typically used for Bitcoin mining. So, you have one power line in and one internet cable in. And tier 3 data centers where most of your data would be stored by Facebook or something, or tier 4 even, which is much higher security, has lots of different types of redundancies and lots of types of encryptions and stuff like this. But how do you do that in a mesh network? So we don't own any data centers. But what we do, and Trym can probably talk a bit more about this in detail, is what we do is we make free copies of the data you want to store, and then we shard that data. So sharding means basically hack it up into slices. I don't remember if you guys played Fruit Ninja, the app, yeah? A lot like that, so you're just swiping up, just creating bits. And we shoot those bits out to the geographical location of your choice, if you have a choice, in the mesh, and then it's stored on those data, encrypted with military-grade encryption. So that if I am data resource provider in the mesh network with my computer, and you're putting information onto Iagon, and you're using my computer without me knowing, I can't go in and actually see what that data is. And even if I could open the file, which would be probably economically unfeasible for me as a private person or a company in Norway or a government in Norway to do, I still wouldn't make any sense of the data there.
Yeah, I mean, security is, there are so many ways of viewing security. One thing is, you don't want to lose your files, accessibility. The other thing is you don't want anyone to read your files. That's, one layer of security. And we're addressing these issues in different ways, and a layer of security as well is how secure is the network itself. How prone is this thing to go down? And we are taking into consideration, random disconnects of resource providers. You don't want to lose your file just because the internet connection goes down for a second, in Sweden or something. Second, sort of attack vector that we're taking into consideration is, once IBM or Google or some other cloud storage competitor gets a wind of this and they say, okay, we're going to try and coordinate an attack on this network. We still don't want it, if they set up 10,000 resource providers and then synchronize a shutdown, we still want you to be able to access your files. So we're building in some redundancy in this way that we're processing your file. We take your file in, do all of this hacking and slashing, creating redundancies, all these things, and then we're compressing the parts to very tiny chunks that's actually stored on your computer. So the amount of data that is stored on the resource provider is actually very, very small. But the reason we do that, and we're spreading it among many resource providers in such a way that even if you lose 15% of the contents of that file, you can still recover it. And that is, you can scale that. You can scale that in such a way that if you lose 99% of your file, you can still recover it. It's going to be, it's going to cost a lot more resource providers. The file is going to be, bigger. It is going to be a bit more costly, but still you can scale that parameter. So if you're not that concerned about security, but you still want to know a little bit, you can sort of parameterize this. And yes, we're building a network that is secure against, adversarial resource providers and for customers as well. So one of the models that we're so now we've been talking about private storage. We have, you know, 2 other products sort of lined up with lots of sub-components as well. One of them is this Agora platform that we're probably David is going to talk a little bit about soon. But we also have we're aiming towards enabling cloud computing, which is a very key component as well. You want to, okay, you can rent out your hard drive, but you know you have a graphics card as well. You have a CPU. Like, these things can be utilized as well. But we want to make that in a very secure way. So we protect resource providers from customers and customers from resource providers, basically. And, you know, the network from both.
And we'll have different types of profiles because you have different types of data storage. So, for example, data centers are they're not going to go anywhere. They're going to be where they are. And then you have private computers that are probably going to stay where they are too, hopefully. But then you have mobile telephones, which are mobile. So what if you stored something that you want GDPR secure, and for a small amount of time, it's on a mobile telephone? What happens if that telephone goes over to Sweden, for example, or something like that? It's a potential risk factor. And we have an AI that, to solve this, we have an AI that controls where the data is every time. So if something comes up that says, okay, this data is about to breach or has breached something, then we can move it quickly back to another location. And the example Trym brings up about mobile telephones is quite interesting, because I basically just use my telephone for 2 things. That's taking pictures of my cat and Strava, and answering requests in Telegram, of course. And checking CoinMarketCap. Checking CoinMarketCap's probably the thing I do the most. But there's so much unused resources. I mean, a mobile telephone today is more powerful than the whole NASA computer system of 1967, I think. So, yeah. I mean, I don't use anything of that, and if I could monetize that, it would be great. So this is like the vision behind it.
But I think we should mention at least Agora.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting. So Cardano got wind of us doing Iagon. We're like talking to them, and it's like, guys, we want to do something about public file sharing, because it's like that's what the internet was meant to be about anyway, wasn't it? You know, that anyone could share any bit of information with anybody else. The only real problem with the internet as it was built originally in the infrastructure was obviously this double spend problem. So they started talking to us about, and like, can Iagon do that? And then we started looking at it, and they started looking at it, and they're like, don't really think it can. And then we were like, give us a couple of weeks. And we've got some really, really smart guys that are sort of the founders of this company. We've also got really smart guys at the company, Talha, Trym, Huling isn't here today, Björn Bjerke, which probably a lot of you know. And we then started to conceptualize with Cardano Agora. Agora is from the Greek sort of place for a public meeting place. So Iagon is about privatizing your data, so keeping it for yourself. Agora is the complete opposite. Agora is about sharing files with everybody else. Now this could be for sharing NFTs, it could be for sharing basically anything. And the social implications of such a system is quite massive. So, for example, if you're a photographer, a journalist, and you're in a country that's at war, you want to share what's happening with the rest of the world. You don't want the government in that country perhaps to coat over what's happening so that people don't understand what's going on. By using Agora, you could basically upload that file to Agora, and then it'd be time-stamped in the blockchain, and then it'd be visible to everybody. Or you could monetize maybe an IP you have, or whatever, but the actual opportunities are quite limitless, basically. But it's basically building on the principles of the first sort of principle of the internet, which was to democratize all information and knowledge.
Because a lot of information that's on the web is controversial, but not illegal necessarily. And a lot of the controversial information, or the sensitive information for parties which are very big, they can actually take a lot of that down because it's centralized. Like, one person uploads a file, and it's hosted by Facebook or whatever. And then if they can convince Facebook to take that file down, then they can do that. Facebook is able to take that file down. Iagon, with the Agora platform, we as a company are not going to be able to take a file down. If you upload schematics for Russian tanks and the Russian military comes and says, okay, guys, take that file down, we are not able to do that because it's stored decentrally. We cannot go into every resource provider and say, okay, delete that shard, please. And yeah, that is something that can potentially be revolutionary, and it's going to be building a large community around it. And basically the censorship of the platform is going to be community driven. So unless everyone says that this shouldn't be here, it will be there. And if everyone says, okay, this shouldn't be here, then it's going to be taken away. It's not up to us as a centralized firm to take this thing down. It's up to the community.
I mean, if you look at Instagram, for example, how much money is Instagram, or Facebook owns Instagram, making from people producing media content for Instagram? Millions, if not billions of dollars. But once that photo's up on Instagram, part of the problem is that I could probably copy that photo and then make an account myself on Instagram and just post it myself if I wanted to. With Agora, you'll be able to have legacy over everything you load up, whether that be sort of pseudo-anonymous, so through your wallet address, or if you want to and you feel that it's important that you protect your brand awareness, you can KYC, giving you sort of a premium badge, if you will. So, for example,
a verification mark, as it were.
So if Nike want to publish stuff or content throughout the world and they use Agora, then they can have like a Nike certified sort of stamp on their files.
Yeah, or if there's I don't know, Bruce Springsteen, just to take an example, wants to create a portfolio page for minting NFTs of his songs or whatever, or custom content, or have some sort of engagement with the community, he can be verified as Bruce Springsteen, and then do this NFT marketplace activity.
I see there's a lot of hands up again. Does anyone have any questions?
So you talked about having everything decentralized, so you can't really remove information. In itself, it's a good thing, but let's say weapons or how to make a bomb or like really shady stuff get uploaded. How do you prevent that? And if it's like community has to vote, how would that kind of justify to expose individuals to, for example, rape, murder, really bad stuff that could develop to PTSD?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Yeah,
a lot of smart questions coming from that table. Right now, that table's the smartest table in this room. So if anyone wants to sort of compete, so you know what they have to do. So yeah, I can start the explanation, and maybe you can perhaps go more into it, Trym. So like Trym was into at the start, we don't have any control of the content. So we are just a platform, a tool for delivering content. So Iagon is a platform for delivering private content or storage for you, and Agora is the opposite in a sense. And one of the problems is, okay, so what do you do if someone's trolling or someone wants to upload something that destroys the community, or somewhat, like you said, a picture of a naked child or some horrific war scene or something like that. And we can't take any part in that directly. We can't do anything with that, but we can create a system or a tool that would allow the community to do something about it with the help of some other security measures. So if we just take your example, we'll start off with. So if someone finds a file or a picture that they would deem illegal, they can report that picture. As soon as they have reported that picture, it will go into a quarantine folder, which means it just disappears from the entire filing system, the public filing system, and goes into a quarantine folder. Then you have a vetting committee that they have to be KYC'd because of what you said about what if a 14-year-old sees that picture, and they have to be knowledgeable about what they could potentially see. So if they've gone through that process and agreed to this, with the upside being incentives for being part of the vetting committee, then around each time a file is reported illegal, a group of random people within the vetting committee are then asked to vote on whether that photo is illegal or not. And the reason for the randomness is to make sure that they can't collaborate within the vetting committee. And to add an extra level of security to the actual people involved in the vetting committee, there are tiers of good behavior and bad behavior. We've written a blog post about this that you guys can check out as well, just so we don't get super complicated and technical about it now. But the more you contribute positively to the community, the higher your score gets, thereby giving you more voting power within the voting committee if you're KYC'd.
Yeah, and there's a lot of artificial intelligence and machine learning tools that can be utilized to optimize this. And, you know, a lot of the visual imagery that is, you know, very graphically striking, that you don't want to expose the users to, a lot of that can be picked up by, you know, machine learning algorithms. You can train those things to recognize those images, find out, yeah, okay, this is, you know, very likely something extreme, and then, you know, auto-quarantine it before a user sees it. And then, you know, we go through this vetting process of, okay, is this allowable? And same thing goes with the moderators. You know, we in the company will not be able to moderate this ourselves. We kind of go into a file and say, okay, I don't want this, and then report it. What we can do is, you know, register as, you know, part of this community, you know, checking through these quarantine folders. And, you know, there are a lot of parameters here that can be used to, you know, stop people from censoring the platform, for example. So you can prove your stake by holding IAG tokens. You can prove your honesty, I guess, by, you know, seeing how accurate is your vote against other people's votes, or the majority vote for this thing. So if you consistently just vote, you know, delete on anything, regardless of what it is, you know, that might not always be accurate, and we don't want that kind of behavior. You don't want someone to just sign up and then, you know, delete, don't even look at the picture. And yeah, there are a lot of ways to actually, you know, work these things, design these systems so that it doesn't expose the users to this content, and yeah, it doesn't expose the community to this toxic behavior.
I heard someone else ask a question while you were speaking, Trym. That was about what different types of, I mean, how do you organize all the data in Agora? If you're going to have loads of people uploading loads of different content, how do you do that? Well, we do that by incentives to the community again. So there's going to be different roles in our Agora which people can basically choose to do themselves. One of those roles is basically acting like as a janitor. This is the best word that came up in my head right now, at least. Yeah. But by organizing the files,
like sort of like Reddit, which has like subreddits and everything. You sort the posts into where they're supposed to be, basically.
I didn't hear any question, by the way. It's just I had to come up with it because no one else is doing it.
Yeah, but I think we are, you know, how we're doing for time.
We're above time, so yeah. If there's no other questions there, nothing. Okay.
One more last question. Okay, here we go.
Popular video, how can you guarantee the response time?
The response time?
Yeah, I just published a popular video.
Yeah.
Which will receive reviews of people.
So that's a design decision that hasn't been completely implemented yet. You know, we're still working on the software as a whole and, you know, the system, but from what I can imagine, you know, thinking forward in time, not making any promises, I would imagine, you know, when you're loading into our platform, you know, going into Iagon.agora or whatever the URL will be, it will probably have some pre-cached videos. So, for example, if there's a very popular video, it's going to be, you know, temporarily stored, you know, on our server, or, you know, however that's chosen to do. The file itself will still be stored decentrally, but, you know, we'll have a copy to ensure that the quick access, for example. That's a very standard way of doing that, I think.
I think it's a very good question. Yeah. I would like to say that also. So Agora is sort of in a more conceptual phase than Iagon. So Iagon will probably be the first product to reach launch market, and then Agora will come afterwards.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, Jonas.
Yeah. So, for example, let's say terrorism. How can you prevent that they use that as a source of communication? So, for example, they upload or connect to the same account to download the file, or just send it around, then one organization have a lot of servers, and
Yeah.
Are you talking
it
about
pops there.
So we,
so Iagon or Agora you're talking about now?
Either one, like how to prevent terrorism, or that it can be used as a source of communication.
Okay, Iagon you can't. That's basically the answer. There's yours, the files you store in there. We have no. That's the whole point. We have no governance. They have solutions already today that they do basically use for the same things. Perhaps there is something we can do to that, but we have to be very careful, because if you're going to be decentralized, that means decentralized and non-governance. On Agora, I wouldn't think it'd be very prudent to do that sort of thing, because
it's public.
Yeah, it's pseudo-anonymous. So just like your Bitcoin wallet address is pseudo-anonymous, it's not really that hard to find out who you are. And this is one of the reasons I lose hair over every time I see in the media that the Norwegian politicians say something about criminals and blockchain. But yeah, a very good question again from this table. So
Yeah.
1 point, 3 points. Right.
Right. Well, I think that was probably way more than our allotted time. So thank you very much for having us, and thank you for the very good questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was a very good one. Very good one. So